Hello there, only one Kenobi here, only one. Welcome to the penultimate episode of the Best of the 96. So we're going to be looking at figures 73 to 84, I believe. So this is part 7, the penultimate. And as ever, I'm going to be looking in here, the Red 5 Designs action figure Kenner toy guide to find out what the characters were. I think we're getting into some interesting ones now, and then we get to the last 17, although the last episode of this will be the last 12. So there'll be a crossover. We'll touch some 17s today. Anyway, let's just do it, man. Thank you for watching this series. Don't forget to hit the like button if you have enjoyed it, and follow the rest if you are new to the channel and found this video only. There's a link to the whole series in the description, so please do by all means go and follow that. Let's do it. Great, and this is where we left off, the Emperor. And so following him, for this episode, the next 12 are as follows. The B-Wing pilot, Klaatu, who, funnily enough, has already been mentioned in this series, but the Klaatu that they were referring to was this gentleman here, Woof. You see him there? So he was wrongly named Klaatu back in the 1980s. We've got Han Solo, trenchcoat, Tebow. That's going to be an interesting, that one. I might need to open the latest one from TVC, because I never did. Moving on, Tebow. It's a great figure, that one. Vintage 80s and current day. Prune Face. That's going to be problematic. ATST driver. The Rancor keeper. Oh, I can't wait for him to be brought out properly in TVC. Lumat. We've talked about him not long ago. And Paploo. Luke Jedi. Poncho, Endor battle, and then that is it. And then after that we get into the realm of, hang on a minute, did I say 84? Yeah, so there is more to come. Lightsaber pop-up, R2-D2. What am I going to do for that one? I need to get me thought. Oh, and then Rumba. So if you watched the last episode of Only One Fans, you will know the situation I've had with Rumba. But it's all sorted now. Anyway, thank you for watching again, and let's do it. I'm going to go and find the characters, lay them out, and see what we have for the next 12. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen. These are the characters, or the figures I found for the characters in the 96, which I think are the best. I've only got one figure for each one, but in some cases I have got two, which I'll discuss when we get to them. But for now, let's start with number 73, the B-Wing pilot. I've got two in shot because I just wanted to show you this one for your own interest, the blonde guy. But number one will always be Kian Farlander, and thank God this figure was made before the Disney acquisition, because the likes of Kian and anyone else expanded universe has been swept well and truly under the carpet. But the reason well, there aren't many figures for B-Wing pilot, the guy in the red suit. That's why I wanted to show you this one. But Kian's cool because of the fact that you find out about his story post the Battle of Endor, joining Luke's academy. I like the idea of a force-sensitive pilot. You kind of got that with Poe Dameron, although, well, he looked like there were times when he was piloting in The Last Jedi, he looked like he was tapping into a sixth sense, you know what I mean? Which is what I liked about the idea that anyone could tap into the Force. But this guy obviously had certain powers. So look into Kian Farlander if you're not sure who he is. And then he does appear in the background of the briefing. But that's a great figure. I've always liked this one. There's a lot of history between me and this figure, and discovering the vintage collection anyway. And we'll never forget seeing him on a peg in Forbidden Planet. And then I was like, oh my God, I recognize that packaging. Oh my God, it's that guy. I had that figure as a kid. And just seeing how different he looked, given that he's fully articulated and got detail. He had a name now. You know what I mean? It's not the best figure in TVC, but it was certainly an icebreaker for me. And this guy, I've totally forgotten his name. I was encouraged to buy him by Daniel Chart, or he helped me find him. Something to do with the Battle of Endor, but he's pretty cool as well. They look good together. Same squadron. Moving on to Klaatu, who was brought out in TVC around about the time of the barge coming out, 2019, I believe. But this is a great figure. Not as good as Woof, in my opinion, but still, he's great. Great articulation, looks good, well painted. And he's correct. This is Klaatu, as opposed to the other guy who was Woof. But they're both the same species, green Nikto. But he's got darker skin. He looks slightly more plasticky than Woof's got a lovely texture. I love that figure of Woof, but this is good. So that was Klaatu 74. 75 is Han Endor. I have been tearing my hair out over which one I choose for this. But would you Adam and Eve it? This is the VOTC one, or Saga Collection. Vintage Saga Collection. And the reason that... I mean, he's got his faults, but I've chosen him purely because of the head sculpt. I think that head is brilliant. Always have done. Same head. It seemingly looks like the same head for the VOTC Han, which is a favourite of many people. But you see, the thing is that they did bring out Han in VC 1.0, and then they reissued him in VC 2.0, and there wasn't much in it. I've got two. Let me go and get both. Yeah, they're both down here. I've got two I've been thinking about opening for probably over a year. These two have been sat in here and I've been umming and ahhing. I mean, one of them looks really like Nick Faldo. I can't decide which of these two to open, and then the other one looks better. So I can't decide if to open the best looking one, which I'd sooner have the best one open if it's going to be on the shelf. But then I like to also have a nice looking one carded. He looks like he's looking off to his right, and his eyes are wonky, and this guy is looking dead ahead, so he looks better in the bubble. I don't know, but I've not opened him because I actually have the original release of the, what is he now, VC 62, which I got loose from Tungori, which is not a great figure really. He's got all the same kind of features as the body of this hand, but what this hand beats is the head. Now I think maybe, have they gone for accurate, they've got the colour accurate now on this one. You'll have to help me on that one, viewers. It's more of a kind of a grayer colour, and then this one is more reminiscent maybe of the vintage 80s, which if you want to have a look at it, he's right there, which kind of was a beigey brown. But that's my favourite anyway, so sorry about that. You don't see it, but I think that's a much better head sculpt for Han, and he's puffed out a little bit, but you can tighten him up a bit. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, moving on. Next up, number 76, Tebow, one of my favourite Ewoks, just because he gets, speaking of Han Solo, because he gets in his face, man. He's a bit radgy, isn't he, man? And it comes with an alternative headgear, which I don't quite know where that comes from, because on the card back he looks like this, and from what I remember in the movie he looked like that, but maybe you can help me with that as well. If there's some kind of, maybe another scene where he's wearing that, or is it linked to the Ewoks cartoon? I just don't know. But anyway, there is Tebow. And the vintage 80s was a great figure as well. I had that one. Didn't have many Ewoks, but I definitely had Tebow. In fact, he was the only Ewok I had. But that was it was a great release to reflect what we had in the 80s. Let's put it that way. So that's Tebow, number 76. And number 77, that's Major Pano, ladies and gentlemen. But 77 is Prune Face, Aramarco, and you might remember a couple of Only One Fans episodes ago, I opened Major Pano, and I said then, a figure I don't have is Prune Face. Not even a Power of the Force 2 one. I sold it a while ago, which is not a great figure. It's got a nice head, but it was just steroidy. But this figure is one I'd love loose. This is the best figure you'll get for our Marco Prune Face. It's TVC. That's begging for a reissue. Come on, Hasbro. You know, that's ripe. Just like Nien Num, or Nine Num, however you pronounce him. They've reissued him because he's rare on the secondary market. This costs a fortune on the secondary market. I think I bought mine, thankfully, before it went bonkers, but that will upset a lot of people who say spent over 100 on this figure, and then when they reissue him, it'll bring the value down. But at the end of the day, we want him, people like me want him loose, definitely want that one brought out. But all I have to show you loose is this guy, who's pretty much más o menos the same figure, except this guy has the eye patch, this guy doesn't, so the heads are different there, obviously, in that respect. But there is our marker, that is the best, no question. Next, 78, the the ATST driver. This is a figure I've had loose for a long time. I think I bought that on eBay. And it's much of a muchness with this guy, who is the Richard Marquand head. This figure came with this ATST, which is the Black Series one, supposed to depict the Rogue One Battle of Jeddah version, or should we say. So I always have him in the top there, but this guy I always just have on my display. This is how I've had them on my shelves up there for a long time. Just him stood by the ATST just to give it a bit of scale. And it looks like he's just waiting in position, you know, waiting for his partner, his co-pilot or whatever. He's just on ground level and you've got one guy up there. But that's the Mark one. Let's take the head off. Let's see. I mean, I can't remember. God rest him. I don't know very much at all about Richard Marquand other than he directed a great film, Return of the Jedi, but there is he. And they brought him out in TVC. Not this one. The Marquand version, I understand. But this guy is better because I always wanted him to come out in TVC because of the fact that this guy, or you could argue, is more like the vintage Kenner because the vintage Kenner figure had glasses over his eyes that were non-removable, whereas this is a removable helmet, but when it's on, you've got no choice but to not see his face, his eyes. But this guy here has got, these glasses are kind of removable to the point you can take them off the helmet at least. So I don't know, you let me know which of these two are the best, but they're much of a muchness. It's nice to have them both, really, but I consider them almost the same figure. Lovely card back with the vehicle. 79 is the Rancor Keeper, now known as Malakili. I'm really lucky to have this figure. This was one I bought from the same guy who sold me him, I think. And also the Grak and Rumba I've just opened. You might have remembered that from the last Only One fans. Aaron, I think his name was, from Facebook. Anyway, I bought this Malakili from him, and it took me a while to open him, but it kind of went up in value since the time he did it for a really good price anyway, but I opened him nonetheless. And you should be hopefully getting him in TVC soon. One would hope. You know, stuff like this we should have had this year, but, you know, we're competing with other lines, 6-inch and all that, so we'll have to wait patiently. But that's a brilliant figure. Absolutely faultless. Love it. And I remember loving the figure when I was a kid. He used to make me laugh a lot, you know, sort of like, ooh. Obviously, he's emotionally attached, but it just used to be funny seeing the big belly dude weeping. But there is Malakili, or Malakili, aka the Rancor Keeper. And also the Book of Boba Fett. It was nice to understand a bit more about the relationships that you can form with a Rancor. Anyway, this is next, 80, Lumat. So this is Paploo. We'll talk about him because the sculpt of that Paploo came from this Lumat, so they say. This is a really rare figure. And on Tungori recently, he was for sale and he's been coming on and off sale, but he's $29.99. But apparently it is a good price, that I suppose. It's still expensive, but given what he goes carded and he's rare as hell, I added him to my basket, then I kicked him out because I'd already spent about $70 or maybe it was 50 or 60. Adding him on would have bumped it up a lot more, so I was trying to save money, and so I kicked him out, but I regret that now because I could have had him loose, but still, I would have had to wait a month for him to arrive from Tungori to do this series, so no big loss. So I can still show you him here in the bubble, but that's a great figure. They're all good. All these modern Ewoks are fantastic. And I opened a couple the other day. Here's Grak that I opened from that 2-pack. Lovely. Look at all that. I love those as well. Those accessories are brilliant there. And then there's Paploo. This one I really like. I never had Paploo as a kid. As I say, I only had a Tebow. Tebow was the only Ewok I had. I would have loved a Wicket back in the day, but still. This, I like him a lot because, regardless of the fact they've changed his face from the Legacy Collection one, which was a shame, really, because that means he's kind of clashing facially with an existing figure. They could have just, there's this talk about them losing the molds of the Legacy Collection, but I don't know. But I do like his, whatever you call it, it's not a poncho, is it? The head gear. Love the feather coming out. This is the feather who jumped on the speeder bike. Am I right? You're not wrong. I love his staff. Reminds me so much of Splash Mountain. That kind of critter vibe, you know? Self-made stuff, the craftsmanship of primitives. Goes back to human history as well in that sense. And the knife as well. Love that figure. He's a real character. He stands out. He's got his own personal identity. Moving on to what is next. That's 81 Paploo. 82 is Luke Skywalker. And this is a great figure. As opposed to the previous Poncho Leia you saw, which is really puffy. This guy scaled a little better. I mean, the helmet is non-removable, but that's fine in my opinion because you couldn't do that with the original Kenner. And that's what this series is all about. We're looking at we're reflecting on that, aren't we, really? But they could have maybe done that, but there's plenty of other figures you can head swap with. So it's not a biggie. It's better than this figure here, put it that way. That was, well, that's a not bad head sculpt I've discovered, or subsequently decided, but the non-ball jointed hips are bad, and I don't know, you might really love this figure, but I didn't. I thought this was better, more fitted, and you've got the ball joints, so you can get him on a speeder bike a lot better. So that's that. That's the, God, I haven't said who he is. That's the VC Bum from the Vintage Collection. Fairly recently, they brought him out for the 50th anniversary of Lucasfilm. He was in that line, or that year, which was 2021. And moving on to number 83, which is R2-D2 pop-up lightsaber. And this is quite funny. I'm looking forward to eventually doing a best of R2-D2s in my collection, because there's tons. I was going to talk about a few others, but to save time, I'm going to leave that for when I do my best of. But yeah, I'll show that one there. That was from the Attack of the Clones line. That's a good R2. But anyway, I just wanted to show you this one first, because that's my favourite R2-D2. The sculpt, the sharpness, even though he's dirty, he still kicks ass. That said, this is the best I have for a lightsaber pop-up R2, and that's a sorry state of affairs. Look at this. I opened it off a card back. It's the Power of the Force 2, that, and it's the flashback series or something like that. You can put a lightsaber in his top. I opened this figure on Patreon, actually. It was in one of those videos on Patreon I have just for members of me opening random stuff, so go check it out if you want to see more videos like that. There's hundreds of videos like that on my channel. But you put the lightsaber in and you can fire it out, but you can't push it all the way in. And I never had the lightsaber R2, this one, when I was a kid. I remember, right, I had a mate, a school friend came over to mine, and he brought with him his R2-D2 lightsaber pop-up, and I was so jealous. I really wanted it. I was trying to convince him to swap it with me. I'll give you the sensor scope one, but he wasn't having it. And rightly so, man. Your R2 was always better than mine. And yeah, but wouldn't it be good if they did that? I'm sure they hopefully will. That card back's pretty good as well, isn't it? Love that card back. And all they have to do is just bring out a half decent R2. Hopefully this one, remodel that one, or they could use the other sensor scope one and just hollow out the inside. They could easily put a lightsaber or something in there. Give us that card. It's brilliant as an alternative. How about that? And finally, what's next? Here he is, Rumba, a figure I've only just opened, and he's great. He's got quite a sharp eye though. Like, does Chief Chirp have similar eyes? I can't remember. But this is great. If you want to see me opening that, check out the previous episode of Only One Fans. I'll leave a link to it in the description so you can see it, because I was quite interested by opening them. But you know, the more of these Ewoks I acquire and open, the more I want an Ewok village. Something I've never really particularly wanted, but I know at Hollywood Studios or Disney MGM Studios, the home of Star Tours, I used to love the queuing area. Kind of like there's an 80-80 towering above you, and there's kind of like the queue's tiny anyway now in that ride. It's only a 5 minutes, like a walk-on ride nowadays, but you used to queue in the Ewok village. It was awesome. You know, back then, when I first went on that, the very early 90s, that was the last Star Wars film we ever received, so it was almost like the most relevant. But anyway, there you go. Thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure to bring you another episode of this. I do enjoy it. And stay tuned for the final episode, which will be the final 12. And I look forward to bringing you that very soon. Thank you for watching. This has been Only One Kenobi. Only one.